guys, it's Alex and I'm here with my July reflections video for the Rereadathon. July's prompt is to reread a book by a favorite author or your favorite author, whichever. I went with a favorite author because I have many, but I picked Ellen Emerson White. I actually reread one of her books earlier in the year for an earlier prompt. I don't remember what it was, but the book was A Season of Daring Greatly, which I loved. It was even better on reread. So very much excited to get into my favorite series of hers, which is the President's Daughter series. This is the first book, and as you can see, I have actually already started it. I'm not very far in, but I really did need to film this intro part to the video because I didn't want to have finished this book by the time I film an introduction. So I do plan on reading the entire series. The first book is The President's Daughter. The second is White House Autumn. The third is Long Live the Queen, and the fourth is Long May She Reign, which is potentially my favorite book of all time, or it at least makes that list. I adore this book. Like, the whole series is really good, but this book is the only one I've read multiple times, and I adore it. It's fantastic. It's really fantastic. She is a very underrated author. Apparently no one knows of her, which like shocks me because I adore her books. I've loved everything of hers that I've read. I haven't given anything of hers lower than 4 stars, and I've read 10 of her books or something like that. So I absolutely love her. I have started this, and just to sort of give my initial thoughts, I love it. It's better than I remember. Like, I remember very little from these first 3 books, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I just don't remember much of them. I read them only once. I read them very, very quickly. And there are things that, like, I remember about this, like, specific jokes Meg makes or things like that. But, like, for the most part, no, I don't remember anything about this book. Whereas the 4th book I've read, like, 4 or 5 times and adore it. I know, like, every twist and turn of that book. The first 3, not so much. So it's a really interesting experience that, like, I almost get to read these books for the first time. Like, this is the first time I'm reading the entire series together. And it's so special, like, to know something is an absolute favorite and to almost get to experience it for the first time. It's just, like, such a special reading experience. And I'm taking my time with it. Like, I'm reading a little at a time because I'm just like, I don't want this to end. It's so, so wonderful. Like, I literally love these books more than anything else in the world. Like, they make me so happy. Meg is such a funny character, and she's like got this dry, sarcastic humor, and normally I don't like humor in books very much. I think they're just not funny to me most of the time. Like, if a book gets described as funny, I'm like, oh no, that's probably not gonna be for me. I don't like it. It's gonna go over my head, which is strange because I love funny things. I'm very funny. I think my boyfriend is hilarious, and that's one of my favorite qualities about him. But when it comes to books, it's just like the humor goes over my head, so it just comes across as very strange and odd and does not make sense. But Meg really makes me laugh. Like, she just says things that are absolutely hilarious. And I love her, and I'm enjoying this so much. Like, I don't think my love for this book can be overstated. And honestly, the last time I read this, I remember really liking it, thinking it was a really good book, but I also remember thinking it wasn't special to me. Like, Long May She Reign is special to me. Like, this is an absolutely stunning, spectacular book. I love it. I could read it so many times. This is the only book I took to college with me. Like, literally, all the hundreds of books I have on my shelves, this is hundreds, 1,000. I have 1,000 books on my shelves, and this is the only one I took to college with me. Because I was like, I'm probably not going to be in the mood to read much, but if I am, I can... A, it's a thick book. B, it's very dense, so it's like, it does take a minute to read. And C, I know I can just read this multiple times. Only book I took to college with me, absolutely spectacular. But I do remember thinking that this book, while it was really good, just like wasn't anything super special. Like, it was a great book, it just wasn't like amazing. But honestly, rereading it, even just like the little ways that I am in, it's so wonderful. Like, it's so good. Like, this is a special book, and I'm just like, I don't know, it makes me so happy. And I never see anyone talking about these. I never see anyone reading these or like anything else by Ellen Emerson White, except for those middle grade historical fiction diaries that she wrote. She wrote the one about the voyage on the Great Titanic or whatever. I love her so much, and like, literally, if I could just talk everyone into reading her books, I would, because they're absolutely stunning. Like, Meg's a wonderful character. She's probably one of my favorite characters of all time. I don't know, I love her books, and I'm so excited to like actually get into and read like the entire series. So I just finished The President's Daughter, which is the first book. It's been like 3 weeks since I filmed that last first bit. It's not because this book was bad, it was just that it took me forever to read because I was so excited to read it. And I was just like, I don't want this experience of reading it to be over, basically. And I just kept like taking my time, like, I want to savor this. I don't want it to be over. I don't want to finish it because then I'll be done. And so it took me 3 weeks to read, which was not the greatest because now I have like 2 days left in the month. That first update was like August 11th and this update is August 30th, so wonderful job on my part. But I've also realized I didn't give any kind of description or synopsis of these books. So essentially, Meg's mother is a politician, well-known politician. She's been going up, she was in the House of Representatives, she was in the Senate, and then she decides she's gonna run for president. And then she becomes president. And essentially, that is these books. This one is kind of just Meg like adjusting to the idea of her mother being president, and then as they go along they do get much darker in terms of like what's happening. Very bad things happen and there are like trigger warnings for like attempted murder and kidnapping, and like it's all done in like a realistic way or like a down-to-earth way, because I feel like that's very different than when things are done in like a spy novel and it's like melodrama, and this is done very realistic and like it deals with the consequences and the PTSD. And not this book is light, and if you're looking for something light you can honestly just read this as a standalone because it works. There's nothing that's like very negative or difficult to get through in these books, whereas the later 3 all deal with like very heavy, very dark things. There is an assassination attempt on her mother. Meg herself gets kidnapped at one point, and bad things happen in essence. But this first book is like quite lovely. Nothing really dark happens, which not my favorite. I do like books that have heavier themes, and this one really doesn't. This one's just like her mother's running for president and here's how she feels about it, and here's how a teenage girl might realistically feel about it and how it would realistically change her life. And I love that. And it's so funny. Like, I don't normally like humor in books. I don't normally get humor in books because it's just like beyond me. It goes over my head. But these are so funny. Like, this book had me laughing, and I don't generally laugh when it comes to books. Like, I am not a big laugher. I did give this 5 stars. The first time I read it, I gave it 4 stars, and I think it was because I was like, this book really isn't anything special. Like, there needs to be more of it. It's not like full enough, if that makes sense. There's so much more in this world that could be explored. And while I do still feel that, like, my actual thoughts haven't changed, it's just that I adore this book. Like, for what it is, sure, it could have a whole lot more. There could be a lot more that, like, is explored. Like, the campaign. Pretty much nothing about her mother's campaign is explored in depth. Pretty much nothing about the press is explored in depth. And there's just, like, so much more to this world that Ellen Emerson White could have gone into and didn't. And I think a big part of that, and why I feel that way, is because the 4th book is over 700 pages long, and because of that, it has the time to go into all those things. Like, it's not that it has such a longer story, it's that it could have been condensed into a book like this, but there's so much more that gets explored in that. And I do kind of miss that in this book, and I feel like it could have been, like, a lot more. Like, this could have just... The story itself, like, it's fine where it goes, and I have, like, no issues. It's just that it does feel a little bit lacking, but I gave it 5 stars because I love it. It's my favorite. Like, this series might be, like, my favorite series of all time. I absolutely adore it. Like, her writing style is wonderful. I really can't recommend enough. It's just, it's wonderful. Because it's the 30th, I don't think I'll have time to get through all of the books in this series, namely because book 4 is, as previously mentioned, over 700 pages long. It's quite thick, and these books are surprisingly dense. I think because they're YA, because they're contemporary YA, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, like, they'll be easy to get through. Meg is a highly intelligent character. She has very nuanced political views, and from, you know, her mother being in politics literally her entire life. And she talks about them and she discusses them. And it's not like a struggle to keep up with Meg and to keep up with her thoughts, but you do have to put in effort. And I love that, but it does make these books slightly slower to read than one might otherwise expect them to be. But like, I love that they make you think. I love that it's an effort to read them. I love that you have to put something into these books in order to get something out. It's wonderful. But I do hope that I can finish books 2 and 3, which are White House Autumn and Long Live the Queen, and then I will probably read Long May She Reign in August. That's my current goal. But this is next. I'm very excited. Hopefully it won't take me 3 weeks to read this, but honestly, if it does, if I do get to the point where like I just want to read this slowly and just a bit at a time, I will, honestly, because this is the first time I will have read the entire series in order. And because of that, it's a really special reading experience because I feel like I'm experiencing them for the first time almost. Like, obviously I read them before, so like I know what's going to happen. But because I never sat down and like read them in order, I read the 4th one first, which was bad. I was dumb. But then I read the first one, and then there was like a long time, and then I read books 2 and 3, and I never like experienced them as a whole in order, the way you're kind of supposed to. And because of that, it's special to read it now and to experience it like that. So if I want to take my time, I will, but hopefully we'll finish White House Autumn and Long Live the Queen before August 1st. A slightly uncomfortable thing has happened. I have talked at length about how much I love these books, how much I love this series, how much this is like one of my favorite series of all time. These books, Long May She Reign is my favorite book of all time. Ellen Emerson White is one of my favorite writers. And none of that is true, but I've been reading this. I'm like 60 pages in, and I've come to the disturbing realization that I'm not entirely certain this is a reread. The first one definitely was. I had forgotten a lot of it, so like it would have been hard before reading it for me to like give a really good description of like the plot and the story and the specific things that happened, but like 100% I have read that book. I do remember the things, like as they were happening in the book, it was like, oh, I remember this, oh, I remember that joke, oh, I remember this being like really funny, and like there was a lot that was like almost as if it was new just because it's been years and years, but I had read it. This I'm reading and I'm not getting that feeling. Like I know the events in this book because I've read Long May She Reign, which is the 4th one, like multiple times, so like I know it, but as I'm reading this, I'm like, I don't remember this. None of this is ringing a bell. And I don't specifically remember reading this book. So I assumed I did, because like I remember the 1st one, I remember the 4th one, like I remember events in between just from like having read the 1st and 4th ones, but I'm thinking maybe I just like filled it in my head. So I'm gonna end this here since clearly this isn't a reread, and if this is not a reread, then Long Live the Queen, which is the 3rd book, is probably not a reread either. I can't say that for certain without reading it, but I'm thinking it's not, and it is the 31st anyway, it's evening, so I probably won't even finish this tonight, but yeah, that was not a fun realization. I'm still loving it. It's a wonderful book. It's just like the 1st and the 4th ones, it's just that apparently I never read the middle part of the series before. So I'm getting to experience this for the first time, which is lovely and awkward, but yeah, so this ends the reading vlog. I guess the only thing that I reread this month, well, I actually reread several things. I did reread The Protector of the Small Quartet. I reread Ribbons by Lawrence Yep. The Protector of the Small Quartet, like, could have counted, I guess. The prompt for this month was to reread a book by a favorite author, and I guess Tamora Pierce counts as a favorite author for me. I'm fine with that, but I did reread The President's Daughter. That concludes my Rereadathon reflections video for July. And on that awkward note, the Rereadathon prompt for August is to reread a second chance book, which is something you DNF'd, something that you didn't like the first time you read it, something you were unsure about or had mixed feelings about, anything that like you're giving this a second chance. I have a couple of options. I'm not sure if I'll have time to get to multiple things this month, but for sure I want to read 1984 by George Orwell. Other options are Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, which I've been wanting to give a reread just because when I originally read it, I was very much not in a reading mood. I had to read it for a class in school and I just forced myself through it and didn't retain anything. And the third option is Mastiff by Tamora Pierce. I've been rereading all her Tortell books, so I could read the Terrier series, which is a trilogy centering around Becca Cooper. There's Terrier, Bloodhound, and Mastiff. Terrier I loved. Bloodhound I was mediocre on, and Mastiff I hated, so like those are my options for rereads this month, but for sure I want to get to 1984. So let me know down below if you are still participating in the Rereadathon or if you would like to start participating in the Rereadathon. The links for the introduction video are down below as always, so definitely check them out. And I mean, there's still time to participate since this is just like a monthly prompt throughout the year, so just like flit in and out as you desire. But let me know if you read anything for the July prompt and if you plan on reading anything for August. I would love to know if people are still participating in this or if it's just me and Alyssa and Abby. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.